Well, I think the resilience is a very important keyword for us because the change is so drastic and so fast, so we have to adjust. That's a change. The resilience is very important necessity for the government to maintain. And the discussion being held right here at the conference is very meaningful.
The main lesson learned in the track, but I would say in general in this conference, I think is the possibility to open dialogue in the region, but with international perspective on good practices, real cases on governance and public administration reforms and institutional development. I think this is one of the main added values of this conference in my view.
Topics. The main result, in my opinion, is the spirit of community, scientific and practical community.
The main issue raised, first one, is how to identify the main actors involved in localizing SDGs. So we have the civil society and we have also the local authorities and local government. We have also the academia, what they can do. And our funding is how to make sure that these actors know each other, recognize each other, and work all together to leave no one behind. So among the issues raised, the first one is this conflict between civil society and local authorities. The second one is some concepts between the city and the municipality. Other one is how to make sure to have optimal space in terms of economic development. One other issue was about should we have all the services electronically, or we need to keep the city as a human space.
Actually, hearing about the experiences, first of all, here in Tunisia, and the policies that have been put in place. The Secretary of State explained the importance of joining up research and innovation policy, so making sure that we have the right conditions for the researchers. And what struck me is that a lot of the messages that were being said at the Tunisian level, we're also seeing at the European level. So making sure that we have a policy which is funding the right research and making sure that regulations or deregulation are there so that innovators, researchers can come together. When we then looked at the case studies in South Korea and Singapore respectively, I think the same messages were coming through, but with a very special history of those two countries.
I think there were a lot of lessons. Probably one of the key lessons is the need for clear vision and political leadership to make sure that the research and innovation system is aligned with the economic growth strategy and with the development strategy of the country. That previous models of technology transfer are not necessarily adapted to the current world and the current environment. In the past, a lot of technology transfer happened through acquisition of technology in manufacturing, and then basically through reverse engineering, countries started to develop some of the components of these factories locally. Today we're talking about more global value chains, more complex interactions, kind of a distributed collaborative environment where you can do product design in one area, manufacturing in another. It requires therefore more work and more depth in terms of elaborating the industrial innovation and the economic transformation strategy.
The lesson learned in my panel, which was building resilience for urban disaster management, and I was chairing it, that we have two situations, one where the urbanization is growing, the other where the old cities are to be regenerated. And we had a presentation covering 10 countries, that what are the systems and analysis tools that could be used to be prepared for any disaster management?
The lessons learned from this conference, I would say mainly one very important issue that when designing and addressing the reforms of systems, for example, education and training systems, it is very important to address also the reform and changes in the governance of these systems.
So we had a panel on financial resilience, so it's the resilience of organization. We were interested in the resilience of organization, public organization, local government, but also hybrid organization and the way they deal with financial shocks and the type of tools they are using, the type of capacity they are mobilizing to cope with financial shocks. And it's been interesting in the panel because we had the view of several different organizations. Would it be from central banks to local governments or to public organizations? And we've tried to see what kind of financial or management control system can be used and can be implemented to face the shocks and to try to go further in the understanding on this specific kind of capacities that are used for dealing with financial shocks.
The main lesson in my perspective was the need to integrate multidisciplinary approaches to the team. The legal approach, the scientific approach, and also the political sciences and governance approach to risk and management of the risk. It was an important lesson, also because there was a merger of experiences coming from China to Egypt, to Algeria, to Italy. We had many experiences coming from all over the world, and this is an important way of dealing problems, international problems, as IIAS usually do in its international congresses.
And the added value was that thanks to this multidisciplinary perspective, we managed to focus the attention on the importance of considering the risks, the evaluation of risks in advance in order to put the basis for the construction of resilient administration.
The most interesting lesson is how to exploit some tools we develop in Europe in terms of social finance, like crowdfunding, just an idea, like social bonds, like social impact bonds, how to exploit, and we compare with other instruments in the Muslim Arabic worlds, like sukuk, for instance, like bond, like special insurance, tawafuk, and the principle of Islamic finance.
We have spoke about a variety of topics. We have spoke about topics like using the technology of the Bitcoin and the blockchains, and if they are compatible between Islamic finance and they are accepted or not. We also discussed the crowdfunding and how it could be used in order to finance small and medium enterprises. We have spoke about the relation between Islamic banks and conventional banks, and what's the difference, and the different countries that are using whether both or whether they are using only one sole financial instruments, which is the Islamic finance.
The lessons learned, or maybe the main points to share with the audience. The first one, when it comes to public-private partnerships, one of course expects to be able to finance all the sustainable development that every country would like to embark on. However, one should also be mindful that some of this will have to be paid back. So countries should really be having experts in their government who know the legal implications for some of these public-private partnerships. So they choose the kind of private-public partnership which fits best to the country's hopes and expectations and will cost least and will have least implications for the next generation who will have to pay back what the current government signs up for.
We talked about quality and integrity of governance. So about central and decentral governance, about corruption, about integrity, about democracy and transparency. And first of all, the lessons learned, and that's the lesson learned during IIS conferences, that it's enormously intriguing and challenging to discuss the topic, quality of government, with our colleagues from China, from Palestine, from different parts of the world, Finland, the US, the Netherlands, etc. And we all know that there are different ideas about what good governance is and how important democracy is and how important effectiveness is.